This looks like a good paper. By 7 to 8 months of age, infants already have a rudimentary but abstract representation of word order, especially the relative order of functors and content words in their native language. Moreover, by 8 to 17 months of age, infants are sensitive to all characteristics that universally distinguish between functors and content words, namely their differing properties. The acquisition of grammar is thus intimately intertwined with lexical acquisition, supporting a model of language growth in which the different levels of language develop synergetically, bootstrapping learning interactively. We examine the beginning of the acquisition of the relative order of function and content words, a fundamental but cross-linguistically highly variable aspect of grammar. Review of existing literature shows that as young as 8 can distinguish between functors and content words. I mean, the simplest explanation is functors are more frequent, much more frequent than content words. So it's pretty normal that, let's say, if you do some sort of like which one raises the heart rate more or which one makes them more interested or like eye tracking shit, it's probably content words because they are novel or like less frequent, and have a rudimentary knowledge of the order of these two universal lexical categories in their native language. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Furthermore, human adults and non-human animals such as rodents process the same linguistic information differently from infants, emphasizing the developmental relevance of bootstrapping function content word order from surface cues available in the input. Discovering the beginning of word order, function, and content. Because speech unfolds over time, linguistic units need to be ordered sequentially. How language linearizes the order of words is one of the most fundamental but cross-linguistically variable aspects of grammar, which infants need to learn as they acquire their native language. The current paper argues the word order acquisition starts in the first year of life, as infants discover one of the most basic features, namely the relative order of function words. Words that indicate grammatical structure, such as these, and content words that carry lexical meaning, such as these. The relative order of function and functors and content words varies across languages. In many languages, such as English and Italian, most functors precede content words. For example, in the house, nella casa. In the other languages, like Turkish or Basque, functors typically follow content words. For example, Basque, etkan, what? Horse.in. The fuck does that mean? In the house, evde, house.in. Right, so it's suffix. As the example illustrates, whether the functor is free, independent words, or for example, English, or bound, is attached to another word as an affix, affix, not suffix. For example, English, the house, or bound. It's suffix or affix? For example, why do you give two different types of examples? You have an IE and then for example here. Like what? Also varies. To correctly understand and produce multi-word utterances, infants need to learn the order that characterize their mother tongue. This is thus a crucial early step in acquiring their native language, and because the relative order of functors and content words correlates with other word order phenomena, the order of verbs and objects and nouns and relative clause or of the blah blah blah, discovering their order may be useful first cue to bootstrap other aspects of grammar. When and how do infants achieve this? A growing body of empirical literature suggests that infants as young as 8 months of age can distinguish the lexical categories of functors and content words and have rudimentary. Recent findings also indicate adults represent the same linguistic information in slightly different, revealing developmental change. Whereas infants capture the input by extracting broad generalizations, adults reproduce word order inconsistencies of the native language. Interestingly, non-human animals are also sensitive to the surface cues, in other words, the low-level cues that are available in the signal that distinguish between functors and content words, but crucially do not map these onto structural representations. Abstract representation of structure. Adults and non-human animals thus process the same linguistic information differently from infants, emphasizing the development of unique learning situation for them. We review here the relevant empirical studies in the three population and discuss the implication of these findings for a synergistic view of language acquisition, showing that acquisition of grammar starts early and proceeds hand in hand with word learning, specifically with the distinction between the two universal lexical categories, the different properties of function words and content words. The distinction between content words and function words is found universally in all natural languages. Content words are words that carry lexical meaning, such as nouns, verbs, or adjectives. Functors are morphemes that encode grammatical functions, such as prepositions, pronouns, and determinants. Functors may be free, independent words, or can be bound. Those two broad classes of words differ not only in their distributional properties, but also in their functional, prosodic, blah blah blah. Functors belong to small closed with major languages changes. It's not possible to add a new functor or to the grammar of a language, which is kind of true, kind of not. Like, especially pronouns. Like, pronouns are usually thought of as functors, but you could add pronouns, right? I'm not like talking about in the LGBT sense, like man, bud, buddy, blood, bruv, brother. They're all like pseudo pronouns. You could even call them just pronouns. And also their dative case. Do you call it dative or accusative? I don't remember, but they're like him, his kind of case is different. Meanwhile, content words from open categories to which content words can be replaced with nonsense words provide, like, again, even the most I would say it's just about the fact that it's a closed category is kind of like a like artifact of them being, or an emergent property of them being from of them having a high frequency or highest frequency, right? Like, these words have highest frequency, therefore they are first captured and understood by the brain, and they are used as some sort of like some sort of like anchors, right? That helps the brain to understand other things, other words. So these most frequent words are kind of set in stone, like the root into the ground, as like the building block. They are the foundation of every other thing, and every other thing is built on top of these most frequent words, including functors, but also other things, right? So they are anchors or the basis of the entire language. So because they are bases, they are less likely to change. Not that they are it's impossible for them to change, but I think it's just that they are very less likely to change. And even over generation, just because they are frequent. Again, like, if something is very, very frequent, it's less likely to change. That just makes natural sense, no? Just because there are people are keep using it. right? Like, like it's possible for them to change over time very, 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 very slowly, but I don't think they can change like, especially they can be removed or be forgotten or be kind of get out of fashion artificially or just like randomly quickly, right? Uh, like the old like pronouns like thee, thy, thou. Uh, again, they in some sense are also function words, but I guess it happened more fluidly, right? Thee become you, thy become your, or thou is you, right? Thou is you, or thee is you. I don't know. The exact features in which they differ vary across languages, but functions are typically unstressed, have a simpler syllable structure, reduced vowels, shorter durations. Content words, by contrast, receive lexical stress. Statistically, individual function words are typically much more frequent than individual content words. Indeed, the 20 to 50 most frequent words in a language are usually functors. The statistical and prosodic features of functors might be related because from an information theory perspective, highly frequent signals should be shorter than less frequent signals. Importantly, the statistical and phonological difference between functors and content words are relevant for language acquisition because they are readily observable in the speech input, and thus offers cues for infants to distinguish between the two lexical categories. Pre-lexical infants representation of the order of functors and content words. Not too interested. Learners rely on backward transitional probabilities to group words into larger units, where Korean learners use forward transitional probabilities, although just clustering basically. Yeah, makes sense. Although monolinguals can rely on this distribution of frequent words to establish the relative order of functors and content words. This cue is ambiguous for bilingual learners of functal initial and functor final language because they are exposed to frequent initial and final structures in there. How can they learn the order of functors and content words? Prosodic information might provide a relevant additional cue. Well, what about if it's just both? Like not any single, like they just look at both. Not one, not either, both. How about that? Functor directionality correlates with the location and realization of phrase level prosodic prominence in natural language because prominence is carried by the content words. It occurs phrase finally in functor initial language, but phrase initially in functor final languages. Importantly, phrasal prominence is realized through increased duration in functor initial languages, English in Rome, but through increased pitch or intensity in functor final languages. Thus, this is a bit stretch. This one is a bit stretch. The infants perceive these cues from birth. Infants are sensitive to acoustic correlates, phonological. Presenting the two in conflict, functor final prosody to learners of a function initial and misaligned, disrupts the word order preference of monolingual infants. In addition, at around 8 months of age, infants begin to develop sensitivity to visual correlates of auditory prosody, although their influence is limited. All artificial languages consisted of a stricter alternation of frequent and infrequent elements mimicking functors and content words respectively. Frequent tokens were 9-fold more frequent than infrequent. Why not like make it a Zipf's distribution? In all but one study in which they were only 3-fold more frequent. Some artificial language additionally include the prosodic patterns breaking phrasal prominence in natural languages, alternating elements with higher versus lower pitch, as in functor final languages, as in. By this age, infants also show sensitivity to another distinctive feature of the functor, the extendability of their categories. Content words form an open class which accepts new members. Functors do not. French 8-month-old infants, learners of a functor initial language who parses structurally ambiguous artificial language into a predicted frequent initial word order, maintain this word order preference. When in test, infrequent elements are replaced with new unambiguous unheard tokens, whereas frequent elements are preserved. Crucially, however, their word order preference is disrupted when frequent elements are replaced with new tokens, while preserving the infrequent elements. The results establish the sensitivity of inputs. It makes sense to me. I mean, it makes sense, the results make sense, but like the experiment doesn't make sense. Or like the explanation to this phenomenon doesn't make sense, like openness and closeness. Why don't just think about it as in terms of like, okay, all words come from categories, right? So we could kind of think about part of speeches also as a form of functor, right? Like the part of speech could also be thought of as a functor. Or I guess thinking of them as a functor doesn't make sense either. Maybe we should say let's see. Okay, let's not see. By 17 months of age, young children. So, whatever. So what I did, right? I have this data set, Penn Tree Bank, pretty fucking old and gold data set, industry standard. 5,000 words, pretty small, but I mean, that is optimal for memory, for my GPU. And then I'll do some pre-processing, not a lot. I mean, I kind of remove some of the bigrams, which is probably not the thing that I should have done, to be honest. Right, this. I probably shouldn't do this thing, now that I think about it. Right. Probably I should just use the regular one. So, what about the name? I think, wait. Huh? Penn Tree Bank train. Right, I was using these. I should have used the other ones. Does this change at all? I don't think so, might. Anything changed here? Let me... Like these most frequent words did not change. Yeah, nothing changed. That's weird. whatever. I don't think this is gonna change either, right? So what I did is just I took the PTB data set and then I just extracted all the bigrams, all possible bigrams, and right, 100% of it. So here this is important, train set fraction, right? So 1.0 just means that I use 100% of the bigrams that can be extracted from this data set, which has roughly 1,000,000 words, probably less. And these are some not so important things. So here I could probably show this, right? So these are like some of the functional categories. Right, some of the functors. So the first are might, could, can, should, will, may. So the modal verbs, I guess. These are not functors necessarily, but they're also like a category. This for, to, by, with, from, at, prepositions, pronouns, nominative for pronouns, and these are just, I don't know what to call them, like do verbs. So what can we see here? And the reason why I have both in one array is because the may is in the intersection of both, right? May is also a modal verb, but it's also this part of this category. So I just wanted to see like how this may looks like. So if you look like it with 100% of the data, right, and we plot the similarity between, let's say, every word in all of this array, right? So every word with every other word, their similarity, that's it. And the similarities, by the way, are extracted from this thing. Extracted from the bigrams, we make a count frequency distribution, like frequency matrix, collocation matrix, and then we turn the collocations into PPMIs, right? Pointwise, positive pointwise mutual information. So, and the PPMIs are our word vectors, and then we do this similarity calculation. Now my similarity calculation is a little bit different because I consider the left context and the right context differently for each word when I am computing the similarity, and then instead of like concatenating the two vectors, I first compute the similarity individually and then I average them, and I found that this is better than concatenating the representation or whatever, right? I mean, if this was inner product, this doesn't matter, but since this is cosine, which means these are individually normalized, right? So the only difference is that are they normalized as a whole, or are they individually normalized, the different direction of context? And in this case they are differently normalized, but it doesn't make a lot of difference. That's not the biggest deal. So then we just do these, right? And then we plot this similarity matrix between every word in all of these lists, or here with every other word. So we can see that there is like this clear kind of chunks or blocks, right? So this is the most prominent, I guess. The first, these modal verbs are very, this means like basically every word is highly similar to every other word, and the more yellow it is, the closer the similarity is to 1, and blue basically is, I think, 0. Okay, so this means it's highly similar, Alright, so this is clearly a very robust, I guess, cluster. And then the second is also a pretty robust cluster. Now it's interesting that the modal verbs and these month of the year words are not very similar, right? Because this area is pretty dark. Now what about the May, right? Because May should belong to both categories in theory. So yeah, as we can see, May is kind of are similar, right? It has a pretty good value, higher value, consistently, by the way. But again, like it could also might as well be noise, because look, if you look at these, there's also some noise here. So it's just not significant enough, right? It's not super consistently similar, I'd say, and that's a little annoying. And then this block, you can see it's like all of these prepositions. This block is all of these pronouns, and this block is these verbs: do, did, does, have, had, has. Now they are not super duper clear, this cluster, and also it's not. And also these words have pretty high similarity to this and this. Now what are they? The first, which is the modal verbs, and then this is the prepositions. So it makes sense that they are similar to the prepositions. I mean modal verbs, right? Because they are still verbs, so they do have similar distributions. Yeah, so, and this kind of proves that, like, with million words we can categorize these function words and non-function words pretty well. Not perfectly, but quite well. And by the way, we are only using the top 100 most frequent words as context. Right, this is only using the top 100 most frequent words as context. This is a notable part. Now we could use much less. If you use less words, then we could, the blocks, they still remain, but then like the values are smaller, right? The magnitude of the values gets smaller the more context we use. And I don't think 1,000 and 5,000 differs that much, but it's still like pretty good similarity, right? And also with more context we can see this May, the similarity between May and these are more prominent than other things, right? So it still could be a noise, but yeah. And right, so basically, like this smaller set of is less context, right? We can see that values are higher, and these are kind of more similar to these, right? Like these could be misidentified as part of this cluster or this. But if I add more content words, the effect of these kind of gets smaller. When I add even more, right, they get dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. Yeah, that's kind of that's it basically. And another interesting thing is that these words are sampled from the tail end of the distribution, and you can see there is no strong clusters, first of all, except for this maybe a little bit, and this is randomly sampled words from the vocabulary. And the random words means that they are usually content words or lexical words, and they usually have very less similarity to these function words, right? So the content words have pretty low similarity to the rest of them, to the rest of the words, right? Like many times, I can do it many times, and you can see it's pretty dark along these two blocks. Well, these blocks are kind of quite self-similar. Perhaps I should use like a bit more content words. I don't know, maybe 50. Right? How much was the thing? Okay. Yeah. Well, there's still some clusters, to be honest. That makes sense to some degree. Why? Because they could have similar or same part of speech categories. Right? But they are, I mean, these words should, in theory, come from content words or the tail end of the zips distribution, right? So they are content words, and that means they are less similar to these. It could be just a thing with frequency, by the way, but I don't know. And it's easier for this word to be similar to another word, by the way, because they have so few contexts. That means that as long as there is like they share one context word, it makes a lot more a lot more contribution. It contributes a lot more to their similarity, right? But yeah, and because they are, the reason why they're not so organized, because they are randomly sampled, while these are like kind of handpicked. So I guess 50 is a bit too much. Let's do 30. To balance things out. Now the interesting thing is that when I reduce the fraction of the training set to, let's say, something smaller, so the 0.1, we could say, right, let's say we could print out the size of bigrams, the shape. So we have almost 90k, right? We have 90k bigrams. Previously we had 900,000 bigrams. Now we only have 90,000. So everything is basically divided by 10 if you look at it here. Pedro. Now see how this distribution changes. Now these words are less similar to each other, right? The content words are much less similar to each other. Kind of mostly because they are no longer super frequent. Hey. They are no longer frequent, right? Or like they are even not frequent at all. While the function words, frequent words, are still frequent. So there is still some of this clustering kind of thing remains. If we use a less fraction, hey, it's still the same. But interestingly, we suddenly have these kind of things, right? We suddenly have this highly similar or quite similar words. And again, these are the reason why they are 1, right? These have 1.0 similarity. And it's very likely because imagine like a word only has 2 contexts and it happens to have and another word happens to have the exact same context. And it's not so uncommon because those contexts are usually function words, right? So it's pretty normal, to be honest. And I could use like 100 cutoff. Right, so I can see something like this. But they're still like not so similar to function words. That's the thing. And it's probably because these are more frequent than these. Let's now use even smaller, like 0.1. So it's 10k words only, right? That's like 1 day worth of speech from an adult, right? Like your mom or your parents or your family or you hear 10,000 words around 10,000 words, maybe more, maybe less, but that much a day, apparently. I mean, I don't know if I speak 10,000 words a day. I don't think I do, but like, let's say in a family with both parents, and even like other people, grandparents, etc. I guess a child probably hears that much words, and also their TV and so on, right? So look at the fucking distribution. Like even the most frequent 100 words have like this small frequencies. So this fucking deteriorates, as you will see right now. Look, first of all, look at these things. And then we no longer see clear kind of clusters, right? Except this maybe, and maybe this, right? The rest are fucking garbage. What about 500? These are still like this. And these are pretty much the same. Right, 5,000. Yeah, again, I mean, it's not like there's absolutely no categories at all. Like there are these. Kind of, but not very clear categories. So my guess is perhaps you need at least this amount, right? At the very fucking least, this amount of data, like 100k, 100k words to even begin language understanding, right? Like at 100k words, we have these things. No, this is 500k. Right, now I could do another thing, which is just changing the data set. Now this is going to take a little while to load, probably a minute or so. And with this we can see it a bit better because it's much more data. It has 1 million words. So this, 100 million words. So the 0.01 of Wikitext 103 is like 1 million word. 1% of the entire training set. This is gonna take 55 seconds usually. Let's count. 35, 40, 41, okay. Right, this is a million word, right? Now we could try to do the same. Why are these so large? Bro, use like int. Right, this is much better. Wait, is this really a million word? Is this really a million word? Train set fraction 0.01. That's more than I expected. Especially the most. Oh, it's Ankh. That's why it's Ankh. It's the Ankh. It's fucking Ankh. Right, now look at how fucking beautiful this looks. Right? May. I guess Wikitext is just a better data set. So here, this is only using 100 context words from both sides, so 200. So these words are not so self-similar, right? And these are still not so similar to these. And we can see that this is a very clean, clear category. This is a clean and clear category. And May is something in the middle is similar to both, right, in the cross section. And this is a clear and clear cut category. What was it? Prepositions. And this is a pretty clear category, right? Pronouns. And it is kind of similar to the first and this and these, but not too much. And these are not so clean categories. No, I don't know why they are not so clean. Probably because they are all different kind of tense, right? They have different tense and different kind of things. Do, did, does, have, had, has. I would guess, like, if I did do, did, he does, right? Do you like? Does he like? Are you? Like, do, are, were, have, had, has. Let's put this at the end. Is R M. I don't know if M is frequent enough, but I think this is M probably, right? Let's not include M. M is not a favorite child. So yeah, we could see that there is some form of clustering, right? Except for the do, except for the first one. The last few, have, had, has, are, were, is, are pretty self-similar, right? Kind of like a category. Now do is not so much, but it's still an okay-ish category. So it's not super clear-cut, that's the issue. But this is super clear-cut, right? These are not at all similar to these, except for this. So this is, I am pretty surprised to see this kind of black hole region. What if we increase the cutoff point? What? Why is this? Why does this happen? So if I use all of the words as context, suddenly these words are somehow self-similar. Why? Content words are self-similar because of other content words, just randomly. That's surprising. Why though? Like, does it suddenly emerge? 4,000, 3,000. Huh. If you use more context words, words become similar. That's interesting. I mean, yeah, if you use more words as context, the words become more self-similar. But why using less context to make context? Yeah, why using less context? Like 1,000 most frequent contexts. These are, it's not enough for these words to be similar to any of the others. Like, let's print the probes too, right, just for the sake. Like, I think I should keep print list. Right, so this, it has some verbs: warn, sending, seats, beats, ultimately, fresh, study, themes. Officer, Denmark, paintings, structure, romantic. I would expect these to be a bit more similar to each other than this. But it's interesting. Again, interesting, nonetheless. But then this is more interesting. Why would using more context words suddenly make them more self-similar? Hmm. 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 But whatever. Let's stick to 100 for now. Alright, 100 we see these clear categories. Now the core problem is how do you extract them? Now we use 10 million words. Right, this is 10 million if you can't count. Everything is x10. Now let's see how if everything changes. Not so much, to be honest, right? Nothing changed a lot. Pretty much the same. Right, this pretty much looks the same to me. Now I should probably like put this to 80 so that it prints more on my fucking screen. Yeah, nothing changes too much. What about 1,000? 5K. Now suddenly these are fucking similar to each other for some reason. Right? If I use 5,000 context words, then it's suddenly they are all self-similar. Why? For what? For what reason exactly? Now the real deal is 1.0. All of it. 100 million. Now let's just start with all words. The same thing. But then pretty clearly like the second cluster, which is these months of the year words, are become a lot less similar to everything else, right? Except for May. So, and another thing is May is not similar enough to these words, right? Now this cluster suddenly is not very clear anymore. The function words. This is also interesting. Like why? Why the function words to, would, could? Why? Huh? For, of, with. Huh. I mean, it kind of makes sense that they're not similar to in some sense, but why is to, would, could, by, alongside, with? Yeah, similarity is small. Does that mean like they are differentiated at, near? But I, we, you are highly similar. We, I, you, we, he, she, they, highly similar. She, he, they, highly similar. Do, know, say, see, did, get, make, think. So the prepositions become quite similar to the other words. Interesting. What if I use less context? Now again, this eliminates this. This is again, and this kind of comes back a little, not by a lot, but At 100 now they come back again. I can't understand this, right? But some patterns are very prominent. For example, this is super clear cut, super prominent. This. So basically, if I use less context words, I can categorize functors better, or like functors are clustered more clearly, right? If I use more, then not only these become super prevalent, yeah, so if I remove those, right, look at these are very weak, right? And the reason I would understand why, because the distribution of words they accept can differ, can be different. Anyways, so enough analysis, enough data visualization and shit. So what does it mean even? And by the way, for fun we could add something like, what should we add? Some vegetables, or some countries first, right? England, China, America, Vietnam, Iraq, right? And usually these two are very similar to each other. France, Brazil. Let's change it to France. And then I could have like Microsoft, or maybe not. Let's just say some app or body parts: hand, head, nose, eyes, ear. Let's say some seasons: fall, summer, winter, spring, and autumn. What else we could add? Let's say king, bishop, queen, commander, president, right? And these are pretty common semantic categories. Each have 5 words in them. Now we could look at them alongside with these, or maybe we should just, no, we could just look at them. Ear, no ear. What do we change it to? Face? No. Legs. Now we have a pretty fucking ugly kind of thing here, right? It should look ugly. So the countries are not super similar. Alright, let's see. England, China, France are similar. And Vietnam and Iraq is similar as expected, but they're not super similar to each other. So Vietnam, Iraq is not similar to England, China, France. Hand, head, nose. Hand is not similar to any fucking thing, but hand, nose eyes, leg are pretty similar, kinda. And then fall is not similar to anything, but I would expect it to be similar to at least, or maybe this is this leg. I cannot count. Okay. So England, China, France. England, China, France. Vietnam, Iraq. Hand. Vietnam, Iraq. Hand. Head. And then nose, eyes, leg. Nose, eyes, leg. Fall. Maybe I should use like a separator or some shit, right? Let's use, what do we use as separator? Let's use, since this is pretty clear, right? I'll just use November. So, right. The first supposed cluster, second supposed cluster, not so cluster-like. And the thing is, they are all self-similar. Look, this is similar, quite similar to other things too, other items in the same list. And perhaps it's because they have the same part of speech, right? Could be because they have the same part of speech. That makes them similar, in some sense. These words are quite similar, but not significant. That's the issue. You know what? Now what if we use less context? Once again. If you use less context, now suddenly these clusters pop out more. Right? Now I use a bit less context. Now see. Now look. This is a pretty good cluster. England, China, France, and shit. Hand, head, nose, eyes, leg. Fall, summer, winter, spring. King, bishop, queen, commander. Right? I would say pretty good, well-defined clusters. Now I don't think if I reduce it down all the way to 100 it would be better, right? Now again, everything is similar to everything else, partially because they are all from the same semantic category. Like if I add something like run, run, play is kind of execute, buy, why I can't think of fucking verbs. Fuck. Give me some sample verbs. Right, jump, sing, eat, no, jump, raise, now what is not in this? Execute, of course not execute. Not think, what about think? Right? Now we have verbs, and you can clearly kind of see that the verb is not so similar to other things. Right, it's a bit darker here. A bit darker, not significantly darker, but a bit darker, especially compared to these words that comes right before it. Right, now it has a little bit more overlap with this first word here, which is fall. Makes sense, but not so much with the rest. And the first word is somewhat similar to this category. So first word is run. Again, it can be used as a noun in certain situations. Yeah, so at a low frequency, as much as low as this, you kind of have a what do we call them? Clusters of part of speech clusters. Now if I increase this back to 1,000, now these words are self-clusters, not so much with others, right? Now, yeah, I can't tell. This is pretty vague. Pretty vague. But appears to be that using too much context does not help for some reason. Probably they give like some false information or false shit. So it makes sense to use the most frequent words as context. That's the first thing that I learned here. If I look at the prints, let's see. It has high similarity with these words, right? No. Fall, come, go, move, grow, fly, get, walk, look, sit, fell, stay. Summer, winter, autumn, spring. There are fall in there. There has to be fall right here. Winter, summer, autumn, spring, summer, autumn, autumn, summer, rain, spring. Whatever. King, emperor, bishop, governor, prince, president, lord, captain, bishop. Bishop, commander, governor, captain. President, run, walk, move, come, fly, go, ran, fall, jump, take. Think, say, no. And I think is a little bit not so similar to these rest. Right, and jump, pull, fly, raise, earn, send. November. Everything ends with a November. So with 1,000 context words, we can have good semantic separation or separation between semantic categories. Now, why 1,000? Like, what makes 1,000 so special? I mean, probably it's not strictly 1,000. Probably 700 also works, right? Or 500 probably works too. A little bit, not the best. 1.5k probably works too. But somehow 1,000 is so good looking. It's the same, to be honest. Looks the same. Now I'm gonna get rid of the diagonal so that we could it's a bit better looking. It looks a little better. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, these clusters are not super clear cut. They're just like clear enough. And then perhaps could we prove another thing? Part whole or like hierarchy, right? Good, bad, I don't know. Tiring, relaxing, efficient, stupid, and then better, worse. I mean, these will be kind of similar to these two, though. Dumber, faster, greater, what else? Whiter? No. Efficienter? No. Funnier. I don't think this is a word, but let's just use it. Stupider? No. I don't know, I can't. Best. Tallest. Fastest. Ugliest. There are probably a bunch of words that are not in the vocabulary. Greatest. Slowest. I can't get it. I am fucking bad at relaxing is already. I don't know. Funny. Efficient. Ugh. No, not significant. Brutal. Ah, why? Fatal. Ah! Bro, I can't. I have to cheat. Tag to word. Let's just first check the post tags. I think it's JJ. Tag to word. JJ. Sharp, okay. Sharp. No, I have to change from. I have to check. I have to find from here. Post matrix. What's this? 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So post matrix. 3. Dot non-zero. Dot into words. Right, smooth, pure, valuable. Smooth, poor, valuable, valuable. Okay. Pure. valuable, funnier, fuck yourself. Smoother, not smoother, of course no smoother. Let me see if ER in it. If ER in upper, or if W dot ends with ER. That's all the adjectives we have. We don't even have the superlatives. Is that what it is? Wait, is that not the... Wait a minute. What is JJ? What about fucking Tony? What the fuck is a JJ? Oh, because they are categorized separately from JJR and shit. I see. Alright, in that case I probably need all of it. Right, JJR, JJS, okay. So, fuck. Dot index, I guess. It's a list, right? Isn't that an index method for a list? No. JJR. In that case, I don't even need this. Earlier, lesser, okay. Earlier. In that case, I could just swap this with smooth. Higher. Higher. Greater, higher. Stronger. So let's replace one with stronger, right? Greater, okay, whatever. I'll keep it. Tallest, of course, there is no tallest. Superlative. No. Oldest, longest, youngest, strongest. Longest, youngest, strongest, worst. Maybe not best. Let's say, let's keep the best in. Pedro. So the last 3 rows are adjectives. And we can see pretty good amount of similarities. Like, these are less similar to the superlatives, right? So the superlatives and the comparatives, I guess, are not super similar, but they are pretty similar to the basic adjective case or whatever, right? Basic thing, basic version. But they're not self-similar. That's pretty interesting. And also it's like they're pretty significantly self-similar. That's a good thing. And then we could say, if you use a bit more context, like 10 times more context, this is a bit more prominent, right? Now we can see that these words, right, quite similar to one another, but this is, what is the fourth category? I should like separate these. 1, 2, 3, 4. So for the king, bishop, blah blah blah, are nothing like everything else, right? Nothing like adjectives or verbs. Verbs are nothing like adjectives for some reason. I mean, there should, unless it's ing. And then these are pretty vague, like kind of like this class. This is also a bit vague, but this is pretty good looking. Like if I didn't have these separators, like look, without separators you can clearly still see a little bit of clustering, right, of blocks. But again, there's a bigger block, and then within a bigger block there are smaller blocks. So case closed. There is a hierarchy between similarities. I want to download this plot. Do we have like images? Okay. Should call these similar word sims at 1,000 or 1,000 context words per category grouped by categories. It's a long ass name, but like just for the sake of it, if I remove all of the Novembers, right, we can still see some interesting behavior here. Right, there's still a November. There's still one November left that I forgot to remove. The verb stands out, except for the first word in the third category, which is fall, right? So again, it's saying that this is a verb, and then this first two of the last category do have also verbs. So it makes a lot of sense. These adjectives belong in one bigger category, but within the bigger category there are also smaller clusters. Like again, here are nouns. These are nouns, right? Noun, 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 noun. So for nouns, there's also a slightly bigger cluster. Within bigger cluster, there's smaller blocks. Now the only question is, like, they are still similar to every other words too. Like adjectives still have some similarity to other words. So are these, so are these. So how do we separate them? So if it's 1,000, if we reduce to 100, then it becomes less clear, right? It becomes less clear cut. Except for function words. Perhaps we could write it down as, let's say, the closed categories of functors, function words, can be observed with as little as with can be at around. Let's try to reduce the amount of data for now. I'll try to reduce to 1 million first. I need this. I need to do this. Right? These do not have any similarity or any significant similarity with each other if you look at it. The closed categories of functors can be observed, or the categories of functors can be observed at around less than 1 million. What about 100K? 100K. Still a little bit, not very good, but a little bit. Alright, think, believe, remember, still somehow. Buy, counter, create, participate. Jump, promotional, ball, goal. Could, would have, might, could, would have, must. July, March, February, blah blah, May. May is in there for some reason. That's interesting. May is still in there. October, November, for, to. For, with, in, by, of, on, and to form. Prepositions can be observed at around 100K. Now what about 10,000K? 10,000K? 10K I meant. Only 10K. This is very like noise. And again, very, very like noise. The category of functors can be observed at around, robustly or accurately at around 100,000 input words. Where the distinction between the within the functor category and outside the functor where the I should say similarity between a functor with other functors in the same category compared to other words are significant enough. Where the difference of similarity and I should say where the vector representation of the functor is distinct enough from words that are outside of the functors category. However, 100k is usually better. This is 100k, right? Yeah, 100k. Again, not significant again, but then at least these categories are pretty significant with each other, right? All these are still kind of noisy. Right, this is still pretty well. Starting from 1 million words, the after 1 million word, the change is adding, using more, or having more training words become less useful or have less impact. So about 100k words is roughly enough to distinguish the different categories of words. Now I don't know if I should say just 100k. I mean, it's still like pretty significant, but then, oh yeah, they are significant. Why can't I say that? The categories, the semantic similarity can be captured of functors can be captured with as little as 100 most frequent words as context. As distributional context. This means, or this implies, the similarity of functors are mostly or the meaning or the semantic, the meaning of functors are mostly defined by what other functors, what other frequent words, mostly functors, they co-occur with. Now, but more context words does not only improves, or I should say does not hurt, but using more context words does not hurt. Now, on the contrary, content words, lexical, we should call them lexical words or content words, are require more lexical words and lexical categories require more context words as well as more data, more input data to be robustly captured. Although even at 1,000,000 words, some lexical categories some semantic similarities, although at 1,000,000 word, some lexical, or I should say semantic or syntactic categories can be captured within lexical words, can be captured but this is not very robust. Using less context words, around 100, part of speech categories, naming the nouns and adjectives, especially, right? Not so much verbs, but nouns and adjectives. Can be vaguely distinguished, but is not very clear. But again, it's not super clear, right? Like you can see these nouns are somewhat form a cluster. The adjectives somewhat, but then again there is very noisy. But it is still quite noisy. So if we increase the amount of data by, let's say, 10 million, now that's a big jump, to be honest. Let's say increase to 3 million. Now at 3 million this becomes a little hard to distinguish. But if I use more context words, now we can kind of slowly see these patterns, right? I'll just use 10 million. 10 million? 10 million. How much does a child? Is this 10 million? This is still not super clearly defined. This still looks still the same to me, bro. Around 10 million input words using somewhat between 100 context words gives the best separation between, or gives the best clustering result. I wouldn't say this is best, but it's somewhere between 500. Now it's still very loosely, like, I'm not saying it should strictly be 500. I mean, it might as well be 200. Yeah, to be honest, 200 is probably better, but 200 is too noisy. Right, around 300. Around, let's say, around 500 context words gives best clustering, visually at least. Of lexical words. let's say now we use 10%, 100% of our brain. Now what's gonna happen? Are we gonna ascend to heaven? No, 100 is too noisy. Right, 500 looks pretty nice. 1000 I feel like is best with at 100 million input words, using 1000 context words seems to give best clustering of lexical words. Not clustering, but best visual separation between semantic, syntactic clusters. Best visual separation between so perhaps is there a law, some sort of law we could extract from this? Let's say, okay, I'm gonna use 0.101%, right? And I'm going to use 250 context words. Is better than 100. Pedro, 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 para 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 para. Alright, let's say 100. I would even say 50 to 250. Do I have any basis for that claim? Absolutely not. So perhaps there is a law of context words. How many context, or like there is a law of optimal number of context words as a function of, there is an optimal number of context words that is a function of total number of training words or samples. Let's say for 100 million is 500, right? So what's log 2 of 100 million? Let's say import math.log 2 100 million is 26. 26, and that's 2000. What the fuck does that even mean? 2000 is times 2, so no, base 10. 8. So what's 2 to the power of 8? 2, 5, 6. Let's say 8 plus 2. 2 to the power of math.log 10 plus 2. 1000. I use one less. You can use one less. That's 500. One less this much, one less this much, right? Like similar to this. Well, to the power of log base 10 log base 10 of number of words, let's say text rm, number of words but this is just eyeballing, but this all came from just simply eyeballing some plots. Not some proven, fact-driven not some proven fact, right? Or not some rigorously proven law. So let's say some examples. These are the what do we call them? Countries. Category of countries, right? Category of body parts. Category of seasons. Category of rulers, let's say. This category of verbs, this category of adjectives, category of superlative adjectives. No, I think that's not superlative. Comparative adjectives and superlative adjectives. And then where the fuck is the plot? Image. How do you link images? I think it's like something like this. I don't want to link it, I want to fucking show it. I have to put a... with 1,000 context words, 100 million words as training core train set. Or make it text 103 with 1,000 context words. Images. I wanna replace this. Copy this to here. And then I have two of it. About 10 million. Using 10 mil. $10,000,000. 0.01, 250, 250. The hierarchical structure of categories can be observed from these plots. Let's even start even at 1 million words can be vaguely observed from these plots. For example, the nouns form distinct region that is separable from other words, but within nouns each semantic category forms more distinct sub-regions. More distinct sub-regions. Similarly, we have a big cluster of adjectives and smaller subclusters of regular comparative and superlative adjectives. I don't have SciPy installed apparently. Install SciPy. How do I install it? Just pip install SciPy, I guess. Pip install SciPy. Skippy. That would be funny if you pronounce it as Skippy. So I'm going to import Gaussian filter, and then I'm going to Gaussian filter this shit. Gaussian filter the fuck out of it, okay? What else does it take? Sigma. Let's do it 3. What it's doing. What are you doing? Does it really take that fucking long to do a Gaussian filter? Okay, right, this is too much. this is not the best idea. This is not the brightest idea that I've ever came up with. This really shows nothing, to be honest. Can you even have fractions? You could, you can. And doesn't really change too much. I mean, a little bit. Right? Yeah. I guess it makes a bit clearer. Like a little clearer. 0.7 maybe. I mean, Gaussian filter has absolutely zero use in this case, but I mean, it kind of signifies, or like it makes these clusters a bit more clear, right? Like look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Although this is not that well defined, but whatever. This, and it's all like proportional, by the way. Like this is similar to these, but I guess we don't care about the number. We don't care about the similarity. We care more about the number of nearest neighbors. Yeah, this is not exactly what I'm interested in. How long has it been? Where can I see it? 2 hours only. The cat is kind of annoying the fuck out of me, to be honest with you. These cats are fucking attention seekers. Like I've heard that cats are cold and doesn't like to approach you and shit, but these cats are super clingy. Like they just they just can't fucking leave you alone. Why my own broadcast is recommended to me? It's some weird shit, isn't it? Wait, this is public. Is this public? These cats are super clingy. Like they just they just can't fucking leave you alone. Why my own broadcast? One interesting thing is that these words are sampled from the tail end of this million. Iraq, hand, Vietnam, Iraq, hand, head, and then nose, eyes, leg, fall. Maybe I should. The last thing, like perhaps we could also observe another interesting thing. What do we use as separator? Let's use. Last thing we could observe is just simply saying that. This is pretty clear, right? This is November. Probe equals vocab. Now, what does it do? I don't want to print it. Print the entire vocab. So. This is just a similarity of the first cluster, first right? Supposed cluster, second supposed cluster, not so cluster-like. And the thing is, they are all self-similar. Look, I just want to look quite similar to other things too, other items in the same list. And perhaps it's because they have the same part of speech. Okay, this is a little abstract. Could be because they have the same part of speech. That makes at least we can see that these regions are more. These words are similarity than these quite similar, but not significant make of this issue. But if I increase the context words, then this region becomes a lot more self-similar. Now what if we use less context? Right? The more frequent the word is, apparently. If you use less context, now suddenly these
clusters.
The less
pop
frequent
up,
two words
you
are,
know?
the more higher similarity they would be. Why is that? It kind of makes no sense to me, doesn't it? Why would two? It's like I was saying all words are similar to every other word. That makes no sense. Right? Now I use a bit less context. Don't you think
Now
it makes
see.
absolutely
Now
zero
look.
sense?
This
Is a pretty good cluster. England, China, France, and shit. Hen, head, nose, eyes, leg. Well, anyways.
Fall,
so we
summer,
have
winter,
these
spring.
verbs in
King, bishop, queen, commander.
right.
I would say pretty
What
good,
about
well-defined clusters. No, I don't
less
think if I
words,
reduce it
like
down all the way
50
to 100, it
words.
would be better, right? Now, again, everything is
Again,
similar to everything else.
at 50
Partially
word,
because they are
at much less words.
all from the same semantic.
We again have a similar thing, right? Like if you look at it, okay, at let me increase by by 2, right? At 50. So these are less similar. So that means that the content words are less similar to the function words. Right? And function words or these frequent words are somewhat self-similar, and these words are somewhat self-similar for some reason. And then I could add it to, I could double it again. Right, now it kind of diffuses for some reason. Double it, and 2.5 it. Now look, now it's like more somewhat uniform, with this tail being a bit more like this, right? And then I fucking hell, I keep missing 1 0. Right, now suddenly, all of a sudden, these words are become frequent, or like self-similar. I don't know what's the right word. These words become super self-similar content words. At 5k, again another 2.5 jump. Now this gets out of hand. Now if we quickly test the 1 million word. Quickly test a million word, right? With 5,000. Similar thing, very similar thing. Not as bad, but pretty similar still. Like again, still the same thing. 1,000. At 1,000, it's kind of fades away, right? At 500, it fades away more, and then these parts are more. So it seems to be that there is this threshold of like content words and function words, like threshold of similarities between. So if I use more words as context words, then the functors, it emphasizes the difference between functors, or functors, similarity between, or I guess a better way of saying it is I don't know what's the right way of saying it. And I also don't know what can be even like understood from these fucking plots. $150 to end. So much less words. I have this distribution of function words and other words. And let's look at the. You could also do this, right? Probes equals tag to word. It has top 30. Okay, Okay, so tag to word is equals to kv in tag to word dot items if okay, no, it's a set. No, if set I for I in v if I in vocab. Does this make sense? Okay. So tag to word. How am I gonna do this? Well, I guess like I could just tag to word dot values dot, how do you, let's do this, for tag to word dot values for, I guess, ttw in rows plus equals ttw dot list. Well, these are a lot of words, first of all, and we can kind of see some clusters, right? The only thing that I'm interested in is what is the best threshold for these to be the most clearly defined, clearly separated. Right, it's still not the best. Like, could have been better. If I use 250, well, how many words is this? Oh, 1 million. Now, at 250, these categories are a bit more clear. These are more. These are better. These are similar to these. These clusters are pretty clear. And what about 1,000? More context. It's a dims, but I guess it's not worst. Now again, at 5,000, everything is similar to everything else, undifferentiable. At 1,000 is pretty good, to be honest, still, right? 500 is also okay-ish. $250 is still the same, not so much different. So what about at 1 million? Or what about at, no, what about at million? 10 million, no, 1.0. Let's say 250, what's the best threshold? Again, a little bit noisy, right? A little noisy. No, too much. Let's see. Again, yeah, it's like fucking epilepsy. 250, not the best. Why did I jump from to 500? No, 1,000. Pretty good. 1,000 is pretty good. 500. 500 is, I would say, a bit better, right? Or much better. maybe not much better, but it's pretty better, right? Look at this spell separation between the clusters. 250. I would say 500 is better. 100. Again, yeah. I mean, it's still separation though, but look. For example, this is unseparable from any of these, or this, right? Like, I don't know, like what defines those things? Like, what if it's just 10? I mean, even 10 is pretty fine. I personally like 1,000 or 500. Right? Just has this like very clear, they defined borders, and like I'm looking at a map. I don't know what each of these fucking are, but they clearly have a distributional preference. I don't know what to call it, distributional. Some clustering tendency, right? Clearly have clusters. And there's probably like also subclusters and clusters and shit like that too. So yeah, that's it for now, for today.